Welcome to Compass Points, the weekly podcast for CompassKnox.com. CompassKnox.com is your best source for news and politics in Knoxville and Knox County. If you'd like to learn more about the topics discussed on today's podcast, go to CompassKnox.com and subscribe for in-depth coverage and much more.
Welcome to Compass Points, a podcast about Knoxville and Knox County politics, government, business, education, just about anything that strikes our fancy that's going on in our area. I'm Scott Barker, the editor and co-founder of Compass, and we're a subscription-based website and newsletter, and we report on all those topics and more at CompassKnox.com. Joined, as always, by Compass co-founder Jesse Mayshark. Jesse.
Ho, ho, ho!
Yes, there you go. Right on cue.
This is our annual pre-Christmas episode, and we are drinking the traditional Pennsylvania Dutch eggnog manufactured by the good folks at Dairyland Distillers in Philadelphia. So thanks to them, and Christmas is a-coming.
Absolutely, and thanks for bringing the holiday cheer with you. Getting me, it's taking the ball off of my ball humbug. So thanks so much. Also with us is Lord Seth Barber, our esteemed producer. Seth, happy Christmas to you as well. And what about that 3-day or 4-day old weather? Because this is a Thursday morning when we're taping this, or Thursday afternoon.
Right, so I, selfishly am skipping school with my kids tomorrow and going to, both my kids are skipping school, but I'm taking my eldest with me for a new hunting weekend, which is going to be warmer than I want for hunting, but it's still a hunting weekend, and it'll be the first time I've got to do this kind of father-son thing with my eldest, so I'm super excited about it. But I, too, am getting to enjoy some of the cheer. These two Scrooges give me one a year, so I get to partake in the fine Pennsylvania eggnog.
Come on, we increased your allocation of coal to 2 lumps per month.
I mean, I will admit that I'd never, prior to 4 years ago now, the first time we did this, that's the first time I've ever had eggnog in my life, and it's continued to be the only time that it's not bad, but.
Yes. Once a year is a good amount of time for it.
Yeah, one glass of eggnog once a year is plenty. It's not something you want to. It's not something you want to drink on New Year's Eve. I can tell you that.
I just want to, on an eggnog related note, while we're here, anybody who's an eggnog enthusiast out there, I highly recommend, if you have never had it or seen it, go and find Charles Mingus's, that's right, Charles Mingus, the jazz legend, his eggnog recipe, which was conveyed in a phone conversation. He was famous for making this eggnog at parties, and somebody called him once and asked for the recipe and got it from him. You can find it online. It's fairly insane, but it's worth trying at least once.
Well, you need to bring that next year.
Yeah, it takes a long time to make it and a lot of booze. I think there's also like a half gallon of ice cream in it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Mingus was a big dude.
Now, Seth, one more thing before we get into the meat of the show. I wanted to ask you, since you're going hunting this weekend, does that mean that when we come over and crash Christmas dinner here this week, will you be serving venison?
That's the hope, yes, but okay. That is not the plan. I mean, one of my bucket list things, which I haven't actually gone out intent with it, is I do want to harvest my own turkey one year for Thanksgiving. That is on my list of things.
I love the euphemism. You want to harvest a turkey.
That's what we in the hunting community call actually collecting. Because I eat everything I kill, so that's the term that we use in the clique, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Well, I hope you don't turn into a cannibal then.
Harvest season, it would open up harvest season at least.
There you go. Anyway, on to what happened last week in Knoxville and Knox County. Things we're going to be talking about. One is something that is actually going to happen Saturday, and as I said earlier, this is Thursday, and that's the swearing in of 5 new city council members, a new majority on Knoxville City Council. We'll discuss that. The Boyd Center for Business and Economic Research at UT issued their annual economic report to the governor, and we'll take a brief look at a very long report. There, the Gay Street Bridge reopened to pedestrians and bicyclists on Tuesday, and we were there for that, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But we're going to start out and spend most of our time actually talking about the Knox County Juvenile Service Center. We've talked about it a lot in the past, and a lot happened this week regarding the service center. As listeners will recall, the Juvenile Service Center, the longtime superintendent Richard L.
Long
Bean,
time and only
until
very recently.
Superintendent Richard L. Bean resigned under a cloud this past summer, and the county put in a new oversight board, hired an interim superintendent who has since resigned, but they're trying to right the ship. There were all kinds of problems at the center, long-standing problems that the county got the UT's County Technical Assistance Service to review, and found almost 100 problems in various degrees of severity, some of them very severe, at the center that they're trying to address and move forward. One of the things that they have talked about doing, and the county commission's already approved, is transferring the management of the facility to the Knox County Sheriff's Office. We won't go through all the twists and turns there, but it's scheduled to take place on July 1st of 2026 when the new fiscal year begins. But they're reconsidering now the oversight board, which was newly instituted during that upheaval during the summer, and made up of entirely of county commissioners. The oversight board discussed other management options. Sheriff's office. We've got an election coming up. There will be a new sheriff. There are 4 candidates in the Republican primary. We don't know if any Democrats will be running, but assuming so, there would be 5 or maybe even 6 running for that office, and we don't know who that will be. In fact, on July 1st, when the transition is scheduled to take place, whoever is going to be the next sheriff will not even be in office yet.
Won't even be elected yet.
Yes.
The general election's in August.
That's right. And they won't be in office till 1st of September. So, and there's a little bit of hesitation about putting that completely new program on top of the already challenging job of being a sheriff in the 3rd largest county in the state of Tennessee. So they're looking at other options. One of those would be to just continue the way they are and have this oversight board perhaps reconstituted to have others besides county commissioners on it to oversee the management and hire a full-time superintendent a permanent superintendent to manage it. There is possibility of having Judge Tim Irwin, having whoever is in the position of juvenile court judge for the foreseeable future, that is Tim Irwin, have him run the facility. Irwin himself said, there's got some issues there because I'm the one who puts people in there, and having the judge also manage the incarceration, or which they don't like that term, but that's what it is could be problematic. Perhaps not for him necessarily, of course, but for anybody else in the future. There is at least one county in Tennessee that does that. The other option is to go ahead and stick with the leaving it up to the sheriff, the new sheriff, when the sheriff comes in. So they're talking about that. They're going to be looking at various options, maybe making some site visits to other facilities that are run on the different models, and kind of see what the pros and cons are. They're going to be doing that the first few months of the year. So they could end up going back to county commission to get the county commission to change the plans if they decide to go away from the sheriff's office.
Well, and there were a lot of, when they first made that decision to transfer it to the sheriff, there were a lot of questions and concerns raised about it from some people in the community, because you can understand the logic behind it in the sense that the sheriff's office already runs the county jails. And so, yes, they are accustomed to running detention centers and staffing them and so forth. And as you say, the juvenile center is a detention center. People are held there. They can't just leave. But I think that everybody would agree that it's not the same as the county jail. There's a difference between, the reason we have a juvenile center is we treat people under 18, unless they're charged as adults, differently than people over 18. And there are other functions that have to happen there. There's education that has to happen there. The healthcare needs are different. There's confidentiality issues that aren't in play in, when you're dealing with adults in incarcerated situations. So it's not actually the most natural fit, even though it seemed like kind of the easiest, the easiest quick fix was like, they already run a jail. We'll let them do it. Sheriff Tom Spangler has never seemed like, he obviously agreed at the front end when they were talking about this, but he's never seemed super enthusiastic about adding this to their, as you say, already fairly crowded plate or portfolio. And so I think there are probably a lot of reasons for them to think a little more deeply about who exactly they want running this.
Yeah, one of the things that has been brought up, that the board brought up previously, even previous to last week, was that juvenile correction officers have there's different training and different standards. You can't just take someone who's at the Knox County jail and move them over to cover somebody at the juvenile facility who is on vacation or something. You can't do that. So there are. And I think that one of the reasons that, remember initially the sheriff's office was going to take over on January 1st, and then they moved it to July 1st. One of the reasons they did that is that there were so many problems there that basically Spangler didn't want to deal with it, beginning in January, that there were so many problems that had not been resolved and would not be resolved that it just wouldn't. He didn't want to deal with it then, and of course, when you move it to July 1st, he would only be the sheriff for another couple of months, and so. But like I said, they're going to be looking at the management and reconsider that. The other things that happened with the Juvenile Service Center last week were not so good. The state comptroller's office issued a report on the performance of the State Department of Children's Services. Now, this report covered a whole bunch of things, but it all included juvenile detention in the state of Tennessee, which DCS overseas nominally, and it was Knox County's facility figured in prominently in the section about juvenile detention. They looked at various facilities across the state. They identified kind of 3 areas, and they looked at that are deficient in areas. They looked at they specifically looked at 4 other facilities. One of them, Knox County, and they looked at the ratio of staff employees to detainees, and they looked at healthcare issues, and they looked at reporting incidents. And as you might expect, these are juveniles, but they've been accused of crimes. Some of them very serious crimes, and from time to time there are incidents in the facility that because most of the juveniles that are in there, they're not, they're in there for a reason. Most of them are. They may not be guilty of a crime, but they are in there accused of a crime, and so of the facilities, Knox County was the only one that was deficient in all 3. It was interesting, and this was not new information. The report from CTAS, the County Technical Assistance Service, had already identified all of these things. For instance, the healthcare thing. There was only one nurse who was on staff. When that nurse wasn't working, the corrections staff would administer medications and things like that. One of the incidents that they highlighted in the comptroller's report was one where a diabetic detainee did not receive insulin for a couple of months.
Wow.
And then
that's pretty bad.
And when they finally did administer insulin, it was not the nurse, it was the correction staff, and they did it improperly. There was another incident that they talked about where there was a fairly, I don't know if violent is the right word, but mental health issue that went on, and where basically the juvenile was obviously had issue. There were vital signs that would indicate, okay, it's time to go to the hospital, and they didn't go. And things like that. Then you've got the reporting aspect of this. The facility went for 2 years without reporting incidents in the Department of Children's Services computer system that is supposed to track these things. And as most people who are involved in modern business practices and anything else, especially government practices, if you don't document it, it didn't happen. And so you had 2 years where any type of incident like that, fights breaking out, whatever, they weren't reported to the state in a proper way. They had paper documentation, fine, but they didn't. In some instances, not in all, but they didn't. And of course, the state's reporting system, their computer system is horrible anyway, which was the subject of a separate chapter of the report that we really didn't go into about how inadequate it is. It isn't going to be replaced next year.
It's worth mentioning that, like, this is the latest terrible state report about the DCS system overall. But it's the latest in a long series. I feel like I'd have to go back to look to see when the last one was, but certainly during every gubernatorial administration that I can remember. I'm remembering reports that came out under Governor Haslam, for example, and I know that there were issues before that as well. The Tennessee Department of Children's Services is just like a constant source of problems. We're constantly getting reports about it being under-resourced, understaffed, not following this is just a almost, maybe this is just how we do things in Tennessee, which is that we run children's services really badly, and every once in a while it gets bad enough that we get one of these reports and a bunch of people talk about it, and every governor then appoints somebody. I remember when Larry Martin, who Knoxvillian Larry Martin, who was Governor Bill Haslam's, I forget what, he had multiple positions in the administration, so I don't remember which position he was in, but he was designated under Haslam to go and really dig into DCS and find all the problems there. And yet here we are in 2025 with yet another blistering report about the inadequacy of the system. Tennessee does not do children's services well, and has not for as long as I can remember.
Well, actually, this isn't the most recent one. The most recent one came out Thursday morning. This we'll get to in a second, but the because it was a little redundant too as far as its relation to the comptroller's report. But the other thing was on the staff ratio, the staff to detainee ratio. You're not supposed to use the word inmate when you're talking about juveniles, and I apologize. But there is a ratio that you're supposed to have, and record keeping at the facility was so inadequate that they couldn't even figure out if Knox County met or didn't meet that ratio requirement. They couldn't even figure it out. That's how bad, and part of that goes back to this, again, was something that was identified in the CTAS report, in that people would take leave, whether it's sick leave or vacation days or whatever, and instead of marking it down as leave, they would just say that they were there and working in the documentation. Well, it doesn't matter money wise, because you get paid leave. You're paid for work. If you take a day off for vacation, you get the same pay that you would get if you worked. So money wise, it didn't matter, but accounting wise, it does, because you don't know if that person was actually there or not, and how that works in with a ratio of to detainees. So they couldn't even figure that one out. Now, I will. It is important to realize that the comptroller's investigation happened before being left and the transition began. In fact, they did a couple of site visits, or they did site visits. I don't know if they came to Knox County twice or just once, but they did. And on a couple of days, they visited these facilities, and that was in the spring. And they, let Bean know about this, and they did started, entering incidents in the computer system, at the DCS computer system, before being left. But many of the issues that came to light in this report and in the CTAS report have been addressed, or they are being addressed. In fact, after the meeting, we talked to the Oversight Committee Chair, Larson Jay. We talked to him about some of these things. He said that 68% of the deficiencies identified in the CTAS report either have been addressed or they were currently being addressed. If you want information, for example, there was only, as I said earlier, only one nurse who worked there. So basically, 5 days a week for 8 hours, there was a nurse, trained nurse there. Otherwise, nope. And the health department stepped up and provided temporary interim help in that regard, and there is funding now for hiring an LPN. That position has not yet been filled, but But some of these things are being addressed. There are other things that haven't been addressed, particularly the facility itself, the deficiencies there. The surveillance system is inadequate. They don't have enough cameras, so there are lots of blind spots in the facility. They need a new key entry system all throughout the facility. They need security fencing. All those things are one-time capital expenses. And the county has talked to Governor Bill Lee about the possibility of including funding in next year's budget for that, so that to get a little help. And they were well received, but of course no promises have been made yet. And so those, it's as though the comptroller's report was bad, it essentially repeated some of the things or all of the things that it pointed to had already been identified by CTAS and have already, if not been fully addressed, they're in the process of being addressed. So those things happen. We'll go ahead and mention the most recent report. So two bad reports come out. This one was a report from the Tennessee Advisory Commission on Intergovernmental Relations, or TASER, TASER. It is they kind of look at things and give advice on the things that the interaction between state government and local governments, essentially. They had a report on juvenile detention in the state. Much of it will focus, and I have not read it closely. I scanned through it before we came here to start taping.
It just came out, you said?
Just came out. This is Thursday afternoon. It came out Thursday morning. I've had a chance to look at it, but most of it had to do with capacity. East Tennessee, Knox County in particular, plenty of capacity, as we've talked about. Their own, there's the Knox County facility is a 120 bed facility. Only, at any one time they only have 24 people there, detainees. So it's more than it's barely being used. So capacity is not a problem here. It is a problem in Middle and West Tennessee, and they talked about the need for that. The one thing that they mentioned, and the comptroller's report also mentioned this, and this is the need for the legislature to give the Department of Children's Services enhanced enforcement capability. They can't really do anything to facilities that are out of compliance. Knox County has been out of compliance for years.
Right. That was something that came out in all the discussion about the Knox County facility, was they kept being found out of compliance by the state, and then kind of nothing would happen. Nothing
happens because the Department of Children's Services doesn't have the statutory authority to do anything. For instance, the whole thing about the facility not reporting incidents to them. There's a clear violation of the regulations, but they couldn't do anything about it. The DCS couldn't do anything about it, or at least they said they couldn't, and apparently they do not have the statutory authority to do it. Both reports said DCS needs the statutory authority to do that, and what that would look like, of course, would come out in whatever legislation. But there's always the possibility of them fining facilities for being out of compliance, whatever that looks like. But both reports suggested that. So I think that it's certainly something to look for when the legislature convenes in January to look for bills on DCS and possibly giving it more authority to investigate and to punish for lack of a better term, punish
hold
facilities.
accountable.
Hold accountable, yes.
Well,
I love all the euphemisms we use like that. It's,
that's something for Knox County Commission and the Juvenile Services Oversight Board to bear in mind as they move forward too, because as they're putting together whatever the new management structure there is going to be, if they are in fact going to be held to stricter account by the state, then that gives them even more incentive to make sure they actually do a good job setting it up.
Yeah, and so those are all the official things. There was one more issue that came up this week, and it was not flattering either. And this was a lawsuit that was filed in federal court by an officer at the facility named Antonio Smith. Smith, who's an African American, claimed that he was discriminated against. And this was under the new regime. This was under the interim superintendent. Brian Bivens, who resigned, was it 2 months ago now, before his tenure was up, for a variety of reasons, and that some of which are not clear. This may have played into it as well, but he is accusing two of his supervisors, Captain Corey Dower, who is the de facto superintendent now, and Sergeant Brad Sabal, with Bivens' blessing, that they discriminated against him because of his race, that they used racial epithets, that there were various accusations that they made that Smith claims are unfounded and untrue. Among them was an affair he supposedly had with a female supervisor there, and it brought that up because he is African American, she is white, and they made disparaging comments about this alleged relationship that they may have had, or at least he alleges they made comments about the relationship he was alleged to have had. So this is a court case. There's lots of allegations going around, and none of it's proven. But that the whole upshot of this was that they were trying to force him out, and he's asking for. He just filed a lawsuit. The county has not responded to it. The county, Bivens, Dower, and Sabal are the defendants in the suit, and they haven't responded yet. But this is a straight up racial discrimination lawsuit, and he's not the damages he's seeking are unspecified. Compensatory and punitive damages he wants, and of course attorney fees. But that lawsuit was just filed this past week, and yet another blow to kind of the message that the oversight board is trying to send out, is that hey, everything's fine. We've turned things around. We're turning things around. It's going to take a while, but we're heading in the right direction. Well, this is something that happened after the transition, and if these allegations are true, well, don't know if everything is all as rosy as they're trying to say that it is. But
and I would also think that any allegation of racial discrimination there would be troubling, not just in terms of employees, but I don't know what the racial demographic breakdown on a regular basis is at the Juvenile Service Center, but I assume that it is probably a racially diverse group of juveniles they have in there. And so if you have anybody in management of the facility making racist comments and that kind of thing on a regular basis, like that also would not seem very good.
Yeah. And in fact, one of the allegations that Smith claims that that Sabal and Dower made is that Smith is actually a gang member and was recruiting detainees to join said gang. Mm-hmm. So now, again, Smith says that all these are unfounded and completely, complete falsehoods, and that is what is going to have to be determined in court if it ever gets to court. My guess is this is one of those cases that will probably end up being settled, but
I mean, this is definitely not a great time for the county to be out there in court trying to argue for the integrity of the leadership of their juvenile services center.
That's true, and one thing is, while Richard Bean is no longer there, these are people that Richard Bean hired and trained. They came up through the Bean system, and so they're having to learn a new system there too. So that culture shift that has also been identified as something that needs to change. That culture shift, as most people who have been involved in these types of transitions know, takes time. So the timing is not good for the county. It was a really bad week news-wise for
it's been a bad year news-wise for the Juvenile Services Center.
To end a bad year. So I think the holiday break, when people's minds are on other things, is probably comes as a big relief to some people involved in the running of the facility. So the moving over to more of an infrastructure thing, the Gay Street Bridge reopened.
Sort of.
Well,
halfway.
No, it reopened, just not to vehicles anymore. As everyone in Knoxville knows, the Gay Street Bridge has been closed for a year and a half because the state determined that it had deteriorated to the point where it was dangerous, and the city has spent $2.7 million on shoring up the bridge to the point where it can safely accommodate pedestrians and bicyclists, but not vehicles. And it was reopened Tuesday. It's kind of one of these things where they just they didn't say, "Oh, we're going to reopen this at this date." They just kind of opened it. Said, "Oh,
move
it's open.
The barriers out of the way."
Yeah, it's open now, and that opened. It opened Tuesday morning. There was a small ribbon cutting ceremony that they had. It was frigid. It was on the bridge deck. When you're on a bridge in cold weather and breezy, you got to bundle up, and everybody was. But they had a ribbon cutting there. They're going to have a bigger celebration after the holidays, and bring in people from the South Knoxville business community and all. But this was people had already started using it. There were people walking. There's a guy walking his dog across there. There were bicyclists and joggers, and of course the Appalachian Mountain Bike Club and Bike Walk Knoxville had representatives at the ribbon cutting to celebrate that. So the bridge is open once again, as Mayor Indy Kincannon pointed out. It was under budget. It was the promise that she had made was to have it reopened by the end of the year, and it is. They met that deadline. So if you are downtown and you want to take a stroll or ride a bike, or you could even take one of the e-scooters that they have available downtown, or an e-bike, and use those. You can use all those vehicles going to and from across the bridge. What you cannot use are cars or trucks
or motorcycles,
things like that. Basically anything that you need a license to operate, you cannot use on the bridge.
Well, and it's interesting. I mean, of course, we've talked. You've written a whole lot about this bridge over the past year and a half, and other media in town has as well. But I saw a lot of comments online after the reopening was announced. Some people still seem to be under a misimpression that all of this is being done like this is what the city wanted to do. Oh, they decided to turn the Gay Street Bridge into a pedestrian bridge. And like, that is just absolutely not true. This is because it is physically unsafe to put heavy traffic on that bridge. It's in danger of collapse. And there is not, as I know we've also talked about here before, there is not really an option to fix that bridge to return it to vehicle service. What the city is looking at in the longer term is whether they want to completely replace the bridge with a brand new bridge that could then carry cars. But the existing Gay Street Bridge, fixing the existing Gay Street Bridge, the iconic bridge, the historic bridge, the beautiful bridge that people like to look at, fixing that to carry cars is not an option. It's not something that they can choose to do.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is the deterioration of the bridge is the steel undercarriage of it, the support system. The steel beams are they're warped, they're cracked, they're when you look at pictures of them, you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe I was driving over this. And in order to fix it, in order to repair it, you would have to replace all of that steel. I mean, you've got to tear it down and build a new bridge anyway. So you can't, which we'll get to the cost of that in a minute, but that's not, you can't just go in and, slap a single replacement, beam in and call it fixed. You cannot do that. So yeah, it cannot carry motor vehicles safely, and in any shape, form, or fashion. Even they can't repair it to the point where that is the case. In fact, they're still limiting the number of people who can be on the bridge at any one time to 1,000. No more than 1,000 people on there at any one time. And you sit there and go, well, 1,000 people, and that's not that big of a deal. You could probably put 4,000 on there. Well, as engineers will point out to you, static weight on a bridge is much riskier than moving weight. You can, in fact, the Gay Street Bridge, one of the reasons it hadn't collapsed yet is because cars kept moving across it. They didn't just park. If you just went there and parked a bunch of vehicles on the Gay Street Bridge, the chances of it collapsing rise astronomically, because that static weight puts more stress on a bridge for whatever reason. I failed physics, but for whatever reason that puts more stress on the bridge. They cannot, and we can't say this enough. I know we're repeating ourselves. They cannot fix the bridge to allow motor vehicle traffic. Period. They cannot do it. Anyway, what they can do at some point is replace the bridge, and they are looking at that. They're seeking a $1 million grant from the federal government to study their options on that. But all those options are going to be quite costly. We said that, it costs $2.7 million to get it to the point where it can safely carry pedestrians and bicyclists. The city has already kind of gotten some preliminary, back of the napkin. What would it cost to fix this? To replace this with a new bridge, and the back of the napkin or back of the envelope. I'm mixing my metaphors here. The back of the envelope. I think
you can use either.
The back
Depends
of the
on
envelope.
Your preference.
Well, does a napkin have a back?
Sure.
I guess it could if it's engraved. I guess it does, or it has a monogram on it or whatever. Anyway, that estimate is for a basic bridge, something that looks like the South Knoxville Bridge, just a concrete Bridge. It would cost upwards of $100 million. It's 50 times, or almost. I guess, what is it? I can't do the math, but anyway, $2.7 million to fix it to this point, $100 million to replace it with a nondescript concrete bridge,
which would be, I think, the largest single infrastructure investment the city had made since. I mean, the convention center cost more than that, but the county chipped in on that as well. But certainly since the convention center,
or the stadium.
Or the stadium, true.
Although a lot of that is Randy Boyd is kicking.
A bridge is not going to be covered by sales taxes or any of the other things.
That's true. It's not going to produce any revenue. It's not going
to generate revenue.
So unless they make it a toll bridge.
Yeah.
But anyway, don't overreact out there. They're not going to do that probably. But if they want, one of the things about the Gay Street Bridge that people really love about it is the way it looks. It is, and this kind of goes back to the reason it can't carry automobiles. It wasn't even designed for automobiles when it was built. It was designed for horses and wagons.
Although, to be clear, you still can't take horses and wagons on it right now either.
No, they did mention. I wonder if you can take horses. I bet
horses are heavy.
I bet they let the KPD mounted patrol use the bridge. I bet
maybe a horse or two.
Yeah. But anyway, certainly a wagon drawn by horses would be a problem.
So are you saying that you need a license for a wagon? Is that
okay? We'll clear this up. I'll check with the city.
So I have one question about this.
Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if you need to have a license to go on the roadway.
Before you question, it was designed for horses and wagons. It was not designed for automobiles. It was designed to go for 75 years. That was its life expectancy then. With horse and wagon use, and it's gone 52 years further than that. Cars showed up in Knoxville about the time the bridge was completed. So for the entire life of the bridge, it has, even though it wasn't designed for cars, it carried cars, and still lasted 52 years longer than.
Yeah, with various. I mean, there was a fairly substantial renovation or restoration of it 25 or so years ago. Yeah. But of course,
that was the deck.
Right.
They fixed the deck. They didn't fix the superstructure. But anyway, if you wanted to build something that looks something like the Gay Street Bridge has looked its entire life, it will cost a lot more money than $100 million. It's going to be, for one thing, is the steel, some kind of steel superstructure like that will have to be built with redundancies in it, to where if a part fails, it won't completely collapse. That's not the case now. If an area fails, it will collapse now. These bridges weren't built with these redundancies back in the late 1800s. So it would, whatever, if they do move forward with a bridge that is aesthetically pleasing as well as functional, then it will cost a lot more than just $100 million.
Right, and all of that for a bridge that even before it closed was not carrying a tremendous amount of traffic. So my question is, what if, and these will probably be discussions, honestly, for the next mayor, not our current mayor.
Oh, absolutely.
But what if the city looks at all of this and decides, no, we like the bridge, we like the look of the bridge, it's an important part of sort of the aesthetic fabric of downtown. How viable would it be to say, okay, we're going to keep this bridge and keep it just as a pedestrian and bicycle bridge for forever and ever? Like, is that viable, or is even its use under this current pedestrian only setup somewhat time limited?
They haven't addressed whether that's time limited because they really want to turn it. They really want to do the vehicular thing. I would imagine that it would be able to last a long time as a pedestrian bicycle bridge. And even if it would need repairs 20 years from now, still a fraction of the cost of a new bridge. So, I mean, they haven't talked about that, but I imagine that it would be viable if they did something like that. Of course, you've got the South Knoxville Bridge and the Henley Bridge. Both of those bridges have been able to handle what's going on. I mean, I've used the South Knoxville Bridge several times. I avoid the Henley Bridge just about every day anyway. Did that before the Gay Street Bridge was closed. The
South Knoxville Bridge has tremendous capacity. I mean,
yes.
That bridge was built to eventually carry heavy traffic that it has never actually handled because the parkway, wasn't continued all the way down to Sevier County like they were talking about doing.
Right.
And so that bridge, I'm sure, can handle whatever extra traffic it's been getting as a result of the Gay Street Bridge being closed.
And of course, the parkway on the south side of the bridge, the long range plans for that is, to basically cut it in half and have half of it be a linear park and only half of it be the road portion be used to carry traffic. And that would, necessitate some enhanced pedestrian and bicycle use on the South Knoxville Bridge itself. Although that, I mean, and it could. I mean, it's wide. I mean, it's a wide bridge, and so there's plenty of space on that bridge to handle traffic. And all, I mean, it's all, and people have become accustomed to this. They don't like it necessarily. I mean,
it's a little awkward to get to that bridge from downtown. Is kind of the challenge there. You kind of have to go up by the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame and get on the ramp there and everything. If you're on Gay Street trying to figure out how to get over to that bridge, it's not super easy to do.
Yeah, well, your choices essentially are. If you don't go over from Summit Hill Drive, I'll go basically all the way down to Hill Avenue.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, I think there might be a different way that I never go that you can.
Well, you could take Church and go over by the Coliseum that way, but even so, you're still feeding into those couple of little ramps there.
It all feeds into the same place. But people have adjusted to this. I mean, it only carried 4,000 or 5,000 cars a day, the Gay Street Bridge. So those cars have moved other ways. Now, one thing that, keep in mind is that, any emergency vehicles, they used to use the Gay Street Bridge. They won't be able to really do that anymore. Although they, I can't imagine there may be an accommodation that can be made for, once a year for a fire big enough in South Knoxville for the downtown units to respond to. First of all, Henley is quicker from the station, but if they did have to go down Gay Street and cross the Gay Street Bridge to say, well, I don't want to jinx anybody, but a major building there right at the terminus there, they might be able to let one fire truck go across one time, but that's not really in the cards. But yeah, I mean I can see that being a permanent pedestrian bridge at some point if they cannot get the funding to do that. Because if they don't get the federal fund, they're not going to build it if they don't get. It's federal and state funding. Usually, federal funding goes through the states. Federal government has a large bridge replacement program. You'd have to get in line. You'd have to, it's going to be way down the line before they can do that anyway.
Well, all I can say is it's a good thing all of this happened after they already totally rebuilt the Henley Bridge about 15 years ago, because if they had to close the Henley Bridge and also not be able to use the Gay Street Bridge, that would have been a problem.
Oh, that would have been a huge problem. We don't even want to think about it. What a problem that would have been. Anyway, the Gay Street Bridge is reopened to pedestrians and bicyclists. If you want to go down and saunter across or ride across, go right ahead. You can. They've got a nice little plaza at the north end now. It's got landscaping. They planted trees. It's going to be a nice little kind of almost a pocket park there at the north end of the bridge at the city county building. And and Blunt Mansion right there. And so anyway, that is open, and you can cross it anytime you want. So as long as you don't bring more than 999 of your friends. So also last week, the Boyd Center for Business and Economic Research at the University of Tennessee issued their annual economic report to the governor. What that does is it helps inform the governor and legislators about what's going on in the Tennessee economy while they develop the budget for next year. They do this every year, and the Larry Kessler, who is the economics professor, kind of does he's the project manager for the issuing the report, which is a collaborative effort, obviously, but he's primarily responsible for it. And Kessler characterized it as the economic outlook as precariously positive, which I thought was, and after I read through this report and then he came out with that statement, I went, he ought to be a journalist, because that is exactly what it is, based on.
It's even got some alliteration.
I know it. So in fact, we use that as the headline in a quotation mark, because he said it, not us. But use that as the headline because we like alliteration in our headlines, and but it's true. I mean, things are you look at the numbers, the superficial level, things look pretty good. The GDP is slowing somewhat, unemployment is rising somewhat, but both of those slowly. And but we're in better shape than the state and the federal economies are on those measures. So those, if you want to take a look at it, as a positive thing, that's positive. We've got a lot of economic activities. Consumer spending is up. All these things are positives. However, these linings, they're not silver by any stretch of the imagination. They're lead linings on some of these clouds. The GDP is one of the reasons it's growing slowly, and they don't think it'll go down and plunge us into a recession, but it could. But the GDP has been adversely affected by tariffs. On the federal level, it's been adversely affected by immigration policy, which is affecting the workforce. I mean, one of the things that they talked about on the tariffs is, Tennessee's biggest trading partner in agricultural products is China, and it went to zero. We did not send a soybean to China last year, the first quarter of the year. It's kind of funny. The tariff thing had a strange impact. The first quarter of the year, GDP surged, went up because people were, or at least imports went up because people were buying imported goods while they could before the tariffs kicked in, and they tried to get in ahead of time. Then that went to nothing in the second quarter after they started taking effects. And of course, the tariffs have been, in place, and then they were removed. Then they were, added back. Then they were reduced.
Higher for this country, lower for that country. And like that, the whole
and goes higher and lower, for the same country, depending on the time. So things were very, very much in flux. And we all know how business people love uncertainty. They are. That's one of the things that Kessler pointed out. Is as far as business investment, kind of waiting to see what's going to happen, things like that. The workforce. I mean, our workforce has been buoyed by an influx of residents. our population's grown faster than just about any other state in the country, and a lot of those people, he broke down the demographics. A lot of them are in prime working age. I mean, it's not just retirees, coming to retirement communities in Cumberland County or Loudoun County. They're coming here and working. Of course, at the same time, immigrants are not coming here and working, and the economy is big, and and a lot of people don't think about it, but we have a lot of foreign owned companies. Denso in Blount County, for example. You also have researchers coming here from various countries to ORNL and the University of Tennessee, and it's getting harder and harder for people to come here for those positions as well. And so it's one of the things that he talked about in the report is that consumer spending, it's been up, and that's especially notable in the state of Tennessee because the state's budget is primarily funded through sales taxes. And so when spending is up, sales tax revenues go up, and we've seen that. And spending is remarkably higher. And however, again, you look a little bit deeper down, all that spending is driven by people who are high income levels.
Which is increasingly true across the whole country.
It is, yes, yeah. All these things that are happening in Tennessee are happening across the country. For the most part, Tennessee's in slightly better shape in all these measures than the rest of the country, but it's the trends are there for everybody, and but low income and middle income people are not spending more, and they are not spending more because of the word affordability. I don't think is even in the report, but he mentioned it when he had a briefing with reporters on Monday when it came out, and but talked about affordability, and that's one of the issues. These it's low income and middle income people aren't spending more because they can't afford to spend more.
Well, because they're not making more.
And they're not making
wages and salaries are not keeping pace with the increase in prices.
And he pointed out that it's really dangerous, economically speaking, for spending to be concentrated on one demographic, because if people who are in these higher income levels decide that it's not affordable for them, and they pull back on their spending, then consumer spending overall will drop. I mean, it's there's no safety net for.
Well, and also, this is spending. Something that economists have said for a long time when it comes to like the effects of tax cuts, for example. If you structure a tax cut so that the benefit primarily goes to the upper part of the income pyramid, like the tax cut that just got passed this year, wealthy people, like, they can only spend so much money on stuff.
Right.
And the more money people make, the smaller a percentage of their income they spend. They tend to save it, or they invest it, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And we don't collect tax on those, especially not since we repealed the Hall income tax, which used to give the state at least a little cut. The Hall income tax was one of those things that if wealthy residents of the state had a really good year, there would be a big haul in the Hall income tax, but we just got rid of that. And so that's not coming in now either.
Yeah. So we are more and more dependent on sales tax in Tennessee. And as the report notes, consumer spending, the overall number is good, but there are, there's troubling aspects to it. And, as I mentioned at the beginning of the segment, that's kind of the whole, that's an example of almost everything in the report. And that is that we're doing okay, but it's real precarious. And they don't know, we don't know, what the future tariffs look like. Because if 2026 is anything like 2025, it'll change. just like the weather in Tennessee, as everybody likes to say. Stick around; it'll change. That is something that is really an unknown, something that adds uncertainty. Another thing is they did not include what the impact of not extending the subsidies for the Affordable Care Act insurance would be. He said, Kessler said, that's going on right now. We've been looking at this for months, and you can't. So this was kind of happening in real time. In fact, most of their data came from the first two quarters of 2025, and they projected for the last two quarters. And they just, they wasn't, that wasn't taken into consideration in the report. And when these, the subsidies end next week. So it's not it's not something that's going to happen in the distant future, and how that impacts people. I mean, a lot of people won't be able to afford to buy insurance. So what happens when they get sick? What happens if they get in a car wreck and get hurt and things like that? Those are
right. And we have a lot of our health systems in this state are already under stress. We're already having rural hospitals closing, and so having the larger your uninsured population is, like, that has effects on the entire healthcare system.
Absolutely, it's kind of the whole point of the Affordable Care Act to begin with. So, I mean, that wasn't taken into consideration. So there are. There are a lot of things that could go wrong with the Tennessee economy, but for now, the outlook, according to the CBER, is fairly positive. They think that there's not it doesn't appear that a recession is looming, but it doesn't take much, according to this. You read between the lines on some of this, and you see, oh well, if this happens. And they mentioned the possibility of this happening. If this happens, then a recession could take place. In fact, they do say at one point that if anyone, when they were talking about the federal policies like immigration and tariffs and those kinds of, they said if any one of these things gets worse or has a worse impact than it does now, we could have a recession. That's essentially what they said. Spoke about it in very very dry economic speak, but that's what they said. So anyway, that's the economic outlook according to the CBER at UT. The outlook for city council is changing, as we know.
But in a more predictable way.
Much more predictable way. I predict this is Thursday morning. People won't be listening to this podcast till Sunday and Monday. I predict that 5 new council members will be sworn in by the time.
I predict that there is going to be a very happy Lauren Ryder. I was one of my favorites. Every time I'd check in with her for one reason or the other, I'd always ask what her countdown's at, because she had a countdown timer on her phone, counting the days until she gets to
8 years is enough.
Office, and she was very excited for it. So,
she is looking forward to a much less robust inbox.
Well, I think I'm going to call her on Monday anyway and just complain about something that the city's doing, just to help her ease off. We don't want her to go cold turkey in this thing.
Well, I could do the same thing. I might do the same thing. Yeah. So pay attention. You can do it to all of them. You know, Tommy Smith, watch out. We're going to be calling you anyway. 5 new council members. We'll assume this happens, which is dangerous.
What tense do we need to use here? 5 new council members will have been
sworn in at the convention center,
and one of them will be the new vice mayor, but we do not know who that's going to be.
That's true. Anyway, the 5 new ones.
Not one of them will be the new vice mayor. I'm sorry. We will have it could be true.
Yeah. At the convention center. That ceremony, the 5 new council members constitute a majority. So a majority of city council members beginning on December 20th and moving forward will be newcomers. So there's always a learning curve for new members, just like there's a learning curve for new employees, whatever. So but they will be a majority, and they, in January, I believe it's January 7th, I think is the first meeting, 6th maybe, early January will, they will be part of a majority and we'll need to get up to speed on all the things that they will be asked to vote on, and it's a bewildering array. I mean, one of the things is if you read Compass, and we try to cover as much of these things as possible, we cover 2 or 3 issues that come out of every city council meeting. What we think are the most important ones, the ones that are the biggest deal to the city. But there are a couple dozen or more items on every agenda that they have to be up to snuff on, that sidewalk repair projects or whatever, and small contracts for the city, the city lets out to vendors and things like that, even most of the zoning matters that come before them, we've either already covered them or they're not really controversial. So anyway, it's a majority. It's also going to be, for the first time in 8 years, the city council will be majority male again, because we've had a majority of female council members up until this most recent election. So I don't know if that means anything, but we made a big deal of it when there was a majority, when for the first time ever a female majority was achieved. So it's worth noting that that is no longer the case. And right after the ceremony, as Jesse mentioned, there will be a special called meeting. They do this every election, where they kind of have an organizational meeting. They elect a vice mayor, they elect a beer board chair, and they elect a representative to the Knoxville Transportation Authority. So from among their membership. So we don't know who the vice mayor will be, as mentioned earlier, or the beer board chair. Especially those 2 positions, almost invariably go to someone with experience.
Right. It would be a lot to take on to just get sworn in and immediately be the vice mayor or run the beer board.
Yeah, because those are, you're required to run meetings and follow Robert's Rules of Order, except where the city charter overrides Robert's Rules of Order, and you got to know where those instances occur. There are all kinds of things that the vice mayor, for example, basically manages the city council staff. They schedule special called meetings. They schedule work sessions. A lot of stuff goes on that. The vice mayor isn't just a ceremonial title, and it almost always will go to someone who is there already. We've got Charles Thomas, got Lynn Fugit, we've got Debbie Helsley, and
Amelia
Parker, who are going to be the holdovers. So one of those 4 will most likely be.
I have my guess, but I'm not gonna bet anything, because I would already be wrong by the time this comes out. I've got to guess. We'll compare notes.
Yeah.
And if you want to know what did happen at that meeting that has already happened but hasn't happened yet for us, that will be in Compass, in your Compass newsletter on Monday.
Absolutely. So if you're not a subscriber, you can go to CompassKnox.com.
Oh, hey,
subscribe,
and you know what?
You
know what is a good thing to mention right now? We have a holiday subscription special going on. If you are not a Compass subscriber, you can find it on our subscribe page at CompassKnox.com, and we are offering a 25% discount on your first year of an annual subscription. So it's only $90 a year instead of $120. So if you've been thinking about it, or if you want to give one as a gift, you can find that information there.
Absolutely. Great point you bring up, because this is the point of the podcast where we normally talk about what's going to happen next week, or this week, excuse me, what's going to happen this week. This week, the only thing that's on the agenda is Christmas. So we don't have any public meetings scheduled. Obviously news will happen. It always does. We'll be covering it, but we don't have anything that we can point to and say this is what's going to happen.
A new scathing report about the Juvenile Service Center comes out.
Well, that's definitely still possible.
That's very, 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 very much a possibility. But if it does come out, we'll definitely cover it. But there won't be a whole lot, and there never or usually isn't much that local governments and school systems do. The 2 weeks around Christmas and New Year's, but this coming week is Christmas, and we certainly hope that everyone enjoys the holidays. Jesse, Seth, hope you guys have a great Christmas for sure.
Ho ho ho!
And I can be nice about Christmas. I'm not as jolly as you are, Jesse, but I can be nice about it.
You just need some more eggnog.
That's true, and I think I'll have another glass of eggnog here as soon as we get off the air, and which we're going to be doing in half a second. Wanted to thank you, Seth, for all that you have done for us, and Merry Christmas. Hope the venison is tasty on your Christmas dinner. We also want to thank Will Wright for providing our music for us, and thanks, Jesse, for all you do. And that'll be it for this week, and we'll be back on the next installment of Compass Points.
CompassKnox.com is your best source for news and politics in Knoxville and Knox County. If you'd like to learn more about the topics discussed on today's podcast, go to CompassKnox.com and subscribe for in-depth coverage and much more. And many thanks to William Wright for composing our theme song. Compass Points is a partnership of Barking Shark Media and Barbarian Productions, and recorded by Lord Seth A. Barber at Barbarian Studios, Knoxville, Tennessee.